Hello, creative travelers, and welcome to what will be the very first Traveler's Canvas video. I thought before we get started, since this is the very first in this kind of series or this playlist, I'd explain a little bit what it is. I will be painting a little watercolor painting that is very, very beginner friendly. I hope, I'm crossing my fingers, that it's so beginner friendly that basically anyone can paint it. That is the goal. And every one of these little art tutorials in the Traveler's Canvas series are specifically related to an emotional world. So today we are visiting the world of calm and quiet. So we're going to paint a little wintry scene that hopefully brings all the calm and quiet and peaceful feelings whilst we're working. Now, an important note here is that this is a little tutorial. Hopefully you'll have a little painting at the end if you choose to follow along. But I would also like to invite you to just have this video on when you're working on your own stuff, or maybe when you're drinking a cup of tea and just need some like chattering and cozy art vibes in the background, or maybe even if you want to bring some colors and some creativity into your dreams, this video is here for that as well. It's like you don't have to use this video for like an art tutorial thing. You can use it for however which way it brings you comfort. So today we are painting, like I said, a little scene from the world of calm and quiet. It will be a wintry scene with beautiful blues and a little bit of pinks and a little bit of orange. And it's going to be a mountain, field, sunset kind of painting. We are really focusing on atmosphere here so that when you finish this and you look at it afterwards, you can both have the feeling of, hey, I did that, but also of, oh, I just love being in this world of calm and quiet, and this painting will remind me of being in the world of calm and quiet. I will be guiding you along, but I will also be chattering along because I like talking when I paint. So you might hear some weird, funky little stories along the way and some funky little thoughts that mix up with the art tutorial itself. It is also real time. I will not be like, yeah, I think this will last about an hour or two, depending on how much I talk. And yeah, the only art supplies I'm using are my watercolors. I will talk about colors in a minute. And I have my hairdryer so that I can easily dry my layers in between and don't have to wait a long time for them to dry. So hairdryer, watercolors, of course you need your pencils, a piece of paper, a palette, some water, and we're good to go. And we're gonna see, yeah, how this little calm and quiet wintry scene comes to life. I'm very excited that you're here with me. So let's do this. Let's do a little painting. Let's do a cozy little painting. Cheers to that. So before we get started, two things. Apologies for my hands that are covered in paint because I'm currently renovating the kitchen, and I am a messy painter, so I literally get paint everywhere when I paint stuff. Whether it be a cabinet or an oil painting or watercolor, I get the paint everywhere, which, you know, I have just given up on trying to be a clean painter. I'm just not. I'm a messy painter. Second, I want to encourage you to not focus too much on what my hands are doing. I might also be shifting the camera angle sometimes so that you kind of get a reminder of that you are here to paint your own inner world, and it doesn't have to look exactly like mine. You can also, for example, follow along with like the colors that I use but not the composition, or maybe you follow the composition but maybe you use different colors, or again, maybe you're just drinking a cup of tea or you're about to go to bed, or maybe you're knitting or reading and you just want the chatter in the background. But if you are following along, I invite you to not focus too much on exactly what I'm doing, because this is your own inner world. This is your own inner world of calm and quiet, and it looks different to mine. So if your painting ends up being different than mine, that is actually a good thing, because we're all unique. Our inner worlds are all unique. So it's supposed to look different. Anyway, we're gonna get started. I have my little journal here. This is the Pearl of Becoming. This is my own little sketchbook. And then if we like, I might be showing you some bits and pieces on if I want to describe something or see, you know, when we're sketching, especially when we're sketching. I might be giving you some information that might be handy to take along with you. Also, I like using this as a ruler. So we're going to start out with making an horizon line. We can't really start a landscape painting without an horizon line because it shows us where the sky begins and where the sky begins and ends, and where the ground begins and where it ends. So let's make a horizon line at the middle of the page. So I'm just gonna find my middle of the page and just divide it in half with my book. I'm gonna do this again. There we go. That's way better. So I want a little mountain in my painting, I want a sunset in my painting, I want a river in my painting. These are the three things that I want to be including. Now again, you can choose to just have the mountain or just have the sunset. It's like completely, you can use this tutorial in any way that you want. Ooh, also, if you haven't already, please make yourself comfortable. Maybe tidy up your space a little bit. Make, like, signal to your mind and to your body that you're going to spend some time with yourself and that this is precious time that is here to comfort you and to calm you and to feel safe and to feel good. And having a bit of a decluttered space and also having a cup of something really nice to drink, maybe a snack, these kind of things, it all just signals to us that we are about to have a good time, a peaceful time. So I have my coffee. I'm also working from my living room because my living room is right now the most comforting room in our house. And so it felt fitting to do this first little Traveler's Canvas episode in the living room. Anyway, we have our horizon line. Then I kind of want to invite you to envision your page in 3 equal parts. So kind of if you were to divide this with a pencil, it will look like this. Because we are aiming for, of course, a pleasant, those aren't very straight lines, but we're aiming for like a pleasant experience for the eye, that when we look at our painting, it just feels soothing. And a big part or a big way of accomplishing that is if we have a composition that is already like, how do you call it? I'm not sure how to describe it, but it is like, it is designed to make us feel comfortable. It's designed to put us at ease. It's designed to be satisfying to look at. So we're going to be using the rule of thirds, which is one of the main ways to composition your artwork. So I will be placing something completely on the left here, covering 1/3 of the paper. Then I will be placing something that goes kind of from one side to the other. That will be the river. And then I will be placing something on the right third of my page. So on the right side here, on this, you can, if you'd like, make a very faint line down vertically, just to show yourself where you're going to be placing things so that you kind of know that you're doing it correctly. But I'm going to be placing a sun here. I want a sunset, or like we're on our way to a sunset. So on my line, on the right side, I'm just going to be placing a circle. This does not have to be a perfectly round circle. We're not aiming for that. We're just indicating that this is here, this is the place where we want to have a sun when we start painting. I realized that while editing, I had several parts about the sketch that I didn't film or didn't record. So I thought before we start painting, you need to have a little look at how we're going to draw this little sketch. So let's do that. We already had, give me a moment here. We have already gotten to the part where we have a horizon line on which we will place something called a vanishing point, meaning that all lines that are parallel will disappear at our vanishing point. Wait, let me just add a little sun here. This is what you should approximately be having right now, and our page in thirds, and a little sun. And now that we're going to draw a river, we need to think about the vanishing point. The vanishing point is basically the point on the horizon line where you will no longer see the items that we're drawing or the items that we are creating. So as an example here, switch this around. If we were to draw a tree, for example, that's a very real looking tree, we place a little vanishing point. And we can draw 2 lines. And so this tree right here, if it were to end up on the horizon line, this is the point where you will no longer see it. So for each step that we take with this tree backwards, this tree will be this size here. And the next step would be the tree is this size here. But if we come to the horizon, the vanishing point, the tree will be no longer visible. So we're going to do the same with our river. Now, the important thing to think about our river here is that think about an S shape. So you have an S shape, right? And we're going to use this movement to create a river. So what I invite you to think about is the Harry Potter scar, which looks like this, right? The only difference we're going to be making is that we're going to add another little loop right there. And in order to create the river, we need to make a parallel line going towards us. So putting this little Harry Potter shaped S into practice here, and knowing now that everything that moves towards the horizon becomes smaller, that means that this S that we're going to be making needs to be big at the front here and become smaller towards the end here. And since we're needing a parallel line, it will follow the line that we're going to be making, but also it will be smaller at the vanishing point and get bigger towards the front here. So let's start with a little flip. I'm going to make one Harry Potter thing, then make another. But as you can see, I'm kind of, well, this wasn't actually well done, but we're making a smaller curve here than we do at the front here, because everything that moves towards the horizon becomes smaller. And now that we're going to make our second Harry Potter S, we're going to start narrow because we want to indicate that this part of the river is far away. I'm going to make it narrow, and then gradually we're going to make it wider, like so. And just like that, you can see that our river, or it looks, now we have the illusion of the river being close to us because this is bigger, and with two parallel lines, or following each other, getting smaller towards the vanishing point, it looks like a river is moving off into the distance. So now that we have that, well, again, let's do a little repetition here. Think about an S shape first. Think about that our S shape will have an extra little bloop, so we got basically two S's on top of each other. Then we're going to give it a Harry Potter scar-like shape, so it becomes more like this, like so. And then adding in the vanishing point principle, everything that is closer to us is bigger, and moving backwards towards the vanishing points becomes smaller until it completely disappears. We start with a small curve, and this curve becomes bigger. And then in order to make a little river, we're going to make an identical one, starting small and getting bigger. And that's how you create the illusion of a river that is moving on, off into the distance. S shape, Harry Potter, big at the front, getting narrower towards the vanishing point. Try to keep that in mind, and I think it will help you a lot with rivers in the future, but also different perspective work. Now for the mountain, which is the last thing that we'll draw in, I want you to think about a triangle. And we're not going to be thinking about a straight lined triangle here. Here I invite you to be playful, to make silly little squiggly lines. I want you to make a non-straight lined triangle, because a mountain kind of has a triangle shapes in many cases, but of course the ridges and the edges are all over the place. So instead of me doing this to indicate that this is where we put a mountain, I might be doing a bit like this. Adding another point, maybe another point there, not making it straight, making this line maybe longer than the left side. And just like that, you have a funky little mountain shape to work with. Like so. And since our mountain is in the background, we will stop our mountain at our horizon line, because if I now were to draw these lines closer, it indicates that our mountain is getting closer to us, but it will be wrong in relation to the size of our river. And these are like details that we will talk about in later videos. But for now, when you make your mountain, think about squiggly, unstraight lines with some extra points. Think triangle and make it end at your horizon line. And just like that, you should have, this is of course not a pretty sketch, but I hope you get the gist of it. So yeah, let's keep on painting, or let's start painting, I should say. So right now we have our sketch. We're almost done, ready to go to paint. I invite you to just take a deep breath. Just get comfortable. Just remember that everything is fine. You are safe. We are visiting the world of calm and quiet. Everything is just good and peaceful there. You're allowed to let go of all the noisy thoughts. You're allowed to let go of all the worries. Right now, you're allowed to just be with yourself and be quiet. The world can catch up later. You can do your to-do list later. Right now, you're just here with me. Take a sip of your beverage of choice. Last thing we're going to do is just make our pencil lines a lot fainter, because we're going to be using quite bright colors, so the lines easily show through, right? And we don't want that. We want to see the colors. We don't want to see our pencil lines. A little bit of pencil lines isn't a problem, of course, but if we can avoid it, then we prefer that, or at least I prefer that. If you like, however, pencil lines in your drawing, by all means, just leave them in there. There we go. Okay, so I got my sketch. I got everything. It's time to make some colors. So now I'm just gonna dip into the colors I think I'll be using. That's a beautiful berry blue. I'm just gonna mix up a little bit of color. So I will be using a lot of blues. I think mainly this berry blue will be like my main color of choice. And then we have our secondary and other dairy, not dairy, but like other colors that we'll be using. Take a little bit of pink, like violet pink. This is probably more like a violet. No, this is not violet. What am I saying? This is more like a purpley pink. There we go. So the blues will be mainly for our, for the ground, for the mountains, for the snow. And then we'll use our orange and our purpley things and our redishes. We'll be using that for the sky. So the first layer will just be using the yellow colors, because if you're not careful and you mix your yellow with your blue, you're going to end up with the green. And for this painting, we want to try to avoid the green, because it's not giving us the atmosphere that we're going for. Or of course, if you want green in your painting, by all means, mix the blue and the yellow, but I don't want green in my painting today. So I'm going to try to avoid to mix them. So we're going to start by painting with the yellows and the pinks. I just need to do a little bit of testing right here. And just feel free to just play around. Like, I know I haven't told you about the specific colors that I'm using, and that is because you can use so many different colors and just look for things that look kind of similar to mine if it is important to you that the end result is kind of similar. But you do not need specifically the colors that I have in order to achieve this. So I have my yellow, might be mixing it in a little bit with a pink. There we go. Getting kind of like a yellowish orange, reddish. That looks pretty nice. And I might want some purple in my sky as well. So I'm not touching my blue yet. I have now, well, I've mixed it up a little bit, but I haven't, I'm not going to use it yet. So I'm only going to be working with my sky and my river a little bit, because we're going to add yellow and a bit of pink and purple into the sky, meaning it will also reflect into the water of our river, which is important to remember because water is reflective, so it will catch the colors that are in the sky. So I guess we're ready to paint. First, I invite you to drip a little bit of drip a little bit of clean water onto your paper. We're going to wet the whole paper because this way the colors will float beautifully into each other. There we go. And I'm just gonna massage that into the painting. Oh, I apparently have a little bit of red in my brush, so now I'm making my entire painting red from the get-go. We don't want that. Like so, just massage it in there, make sure that everything just has a gentle layer of water. Now, if you have too much, you can just drag your brush over it. Soak it up into your brush and then dip it on some paper. Like so. You can also lift it up a little bit, like that, and let it pool at the bottom. And then take your paper and just dry it out, like so. We don't want it to be dripping wet. We just want it to be moist. Moist paper. There we go. Now, the only brushes I think I'll be using for today is this one. This is a round brush, size 8. And I might be using this one, which is either a size 6. This is size 6. I also have, yeah, maybe we will also go for like a number 1. These 3, so an 8, a 1, and a 6. That was a weird way of saying the numbers, but if you only have an 8, for example, with a pretty, how do you call it? With a nice tip on it, then that works totally fine too. You can accomplish this with only one brush, so don't worry about it if you only have one brush. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to take my yellow. I'm going to make a very watery pool. So you can kind of look at the consistency of your paint to judge the intensity of the color, how intense it will be on your page. So if you go for a very watery, not texture, but a watery consistency, you can trust that your paint will look very watery, very faint on the page. And the more pigment you add from your palette into your paint, the thicker it will get, so it can get into more of like a milky consistency. And that will give you way more vibrant and dense pigments on your page. And when we start out like this, especially with the sky, we want it to be very soft. We want it to be very light. And if you want to get good at watercolor also, it's important to learn to layer. So use a lot of layers. That's how you can ultimately create beautiful depth. So we're starting with a very, like, this is just water with a little bit of pigment in it. So I'm going to take my yellow and I'm simply just going to dab it approximately around the area where I want my sun to be. And the important part is that if you can't really see your sun anymore, just make sure that the yellow doesn't go exactly where you think it is. Because with watercolor, we work from light to dark. So we start very light and then we add more and more pigment, more and more color, more and more contrast. So where you want your sun to be, that will be the brightest point. The sun will be the brightest. So we need to keep that as white as possible. So I'm just adding in my yellow, but I'm trying to keep the center, this circle here, I'm trying to keep that white. If you feel like you need to remove a bit of paint, just make sure your brush is clean and then dip it on some paper so that the paper can soak up the paint. Don't do this with a dirty brush that has a different color, because then you will get that different color on where you're trying to remove color, which is not what we want. So like so, I might add some more yellow here and there. You might also put a little bit of yellow on your mountain, simply because the mountain catches the sunlight. So we're adding a bit of yellow there. And then, like I said, the water reflects the sky, so we also want to be adding a little bit of yellow here. Approximately, when you think about that the sun is like shining towards you, where do you think that the sun rays will hit your river? And I think mine will hit about here. Like so. Maybe I even do it a little bit on the snow. Just a little bit. Like if we regret putting yellow, this light yellow on snow later, we can make it disappear. Like this layer here is so faint that if we regret something later, we can always remove it. like make it go away with more other paint and other colors. There we go. Got my yellow. Now I'm gonna go in with my orange. And I'm now gonna do the wet on wet technique, meaning I put wet paint on wet paint. And the most important thing here, because something usually happens when you have this thing called blooming that can happen with watercolor that annoys a lot of people, me included. It annoyed me for so many years until I understood that to avoid that, I need to make sure that the paint I put on top of this is a little bit thicker than the layer I already have on it. So I need to make sure that there's a little bit more pigment into my orange puddle than there is in the pigment of the yellow paint on my paper. So I have a little bit like that. And then let's see if my paper is starting to dry, which is not very convenient. But I'm just gonna add it in here. I'm just gonna make some stripes because I want to indicate that we got some clouds going on. I am literally just brushing it in there. Maybe making some dots like so. This is like a cloud. And yes, I'm doing it in front of the sun where I want my sun to be because I want the clouds to be a little bit in front of my sun. Also, the further away we move from the sun, the darker and cooler our colors get. So it's the closer we are to the sun, the warmer the colors are. The further away we get, so the sky here on the right side, I mean the left side, gets cooler. So I'm still mixing up my orange, but it's a little bit more pinkish now. And I'm also noticing that my paper is drying, so I should quit this layer very soon if I don't want to have weird streaks and things that I don't want in there. Then it's just better to dry it up and wet the paper all over again. Just adding in a bit of orangey, pinkish stripes. We are working with the sunset here, so this area will be very vibrant and orange soon. But pretty quickly we will already move away from those colors because the sun is moving away from us. Like so. I think I'm going to dry this up and then I'm going to continue working on my sky because everything is already drying up. So we're back. I also got myself a little bit more coffee. I love my morning coffee and it's morning here right now. So I want a little bit more vibrancy in my sky. I don't have any clouds yet properly either. So I'm making a little bit of a denser pigmented puddles right now because I want it more vibrant. So I needed to go towards more like squash. Is that right? Like this flavorful water, which is a little bit denser in consistency. We don't want the milky consistency just yet. We want the squash, the lemonade kind of. So I've got a bit of orange yellow. I want a bit more pink. And also, if you can, take a moment to just appreciate your colors on your palette, to see the beauty of color. I love color so much, it brings me so much joy. And just seeing them activate and come to life on my palette, it's the best. It is the best. So we got a bit of that. I will probably also want a bit more of like violet clouds. I'm going to activate my purple again. And if I want to soften my violet, because I think it's very purple, like now it's more like a bluish purple. I want it a warmerish purple violet. I'm adding a bit of my pink. There we go. I think that looks nice. So now that I got my colors, I'm going to be wetting my paper again. Taking my pipette Just dripping on some water. Not making it too wet, just moist. I'm just moisturizing, not my skin, I'm moisturizing my paper. I never moisturize my skin. If I moisturize anything, it's paper. There we go. Like so. Making sure that I don't have too much water on it, because I don't want, if I have too much water, it's just going to drip off the page and I'm just going to start creating like mud puddles, and I do not want that. I want beautiful, colorful puddles. That's what I'm after. So I feel like my sun isn't too vibrant enough yet, so I'm taking my denser, more orangey colors. Just making a circle around my sun, and then I'm going to start spreading out my yellow a little bit. Like you can't go wrong here. Just, you have beautiful colors that you're working with. Just put them in the sky wherever you want them. You'll be surprised to see how much with watercolor, like it has a life of its own. And when we're finished, in a little while from now, you'll see how much the things that you thought didn't make sense will make sense and will become something magical on the page. Just adding in more of that. Going in with my reddish one. So now that I want a little bit of clouds, I'm just going to add a bit of a darker color, and I'm just going to dap it in a little bit. I'm just, how do you say, I'm insinuating that I have clouds here. I'm not like making specific clouds. I just, you know, if your imagination wants to see clouds, you can see them. And if you just want it to be a beautiful background sky color, then that's what you'll see. So it's just very faint, just tapping it in here. There we go. I might also add a little bit of yellow or reddish on my mountain because it reflects the light, even though it is behind. So there we go. Then I'm gonna take a bit of my pink because we still have a bit of sky here. Oh, it's dry. Haven't I made that wet? Apparently not. I'm just gonna add a bit of water here. I need this to be wet. There we go. I am sitting in a living room with a very hot fireplace, and so my paper dries way faster than I'm used to, which makes all of this a little bit harder than I expected. Dapping in a bit of my pink. There we go. And I might want a bit of violet pinkish clouds. Just adding in those. And remember that for each color you add, make sure that the next color is a little bit denser in pigment than the color you put in before, just to avoid those weird blooms. If we don't want them. If you want blooms, by all means, then make the puddles just as thin or even thinner than the layer before. It's completely up to you. I think I'm starting to like my colors. Also, I have my hills in the back here, so I'm just going to indicate with a bit of pink that I have some hills back here. So the hill that is the furthest back is the pinkest, and then I take a bit of a violet. Let's see. Just adding a bit of a violet one, adding that over there. Because the closer something gets to you, the cooler it also gets in color. So if this hill right here is the furthest away, it means it's the warmest in color. And then the next hill that is a bit closer, it will be cooler in color. And then this one will be, we have two more here, are even cooler. So I think before we're done with the sky, I think I want a little bit of blue in it. Just a tiny bit, just like the sky part, the sky part that is the furthest away. And you see now that I mix it with my pink, it actually becomes more violet. It's okay. Just adding like a bit at the top here. There we go. I think this sky is making me pretty happy. Maybe I'll add a little bit of red. A little bit of a reddish pink at the bottom. Like so. Here we go. We got a sky going on, which we love. Now I'm going to use my hairdryer and let this dry, and then we're going to start working on the rest. So we have a bit of a sky. We can work on this later on if we want to add some stuff, but for now, this is just a beautiful, at least to me, this is a beautiful starting point. I have my colors, I have the atmosphere. Now I can start working in some of the foreground colors, and I can start working in colors on my river and all these kind of things. Just getting things in place, and then we can always work more on it and work on the details later. But I think it's really important to get your base colors in first. So I forgot I need to do this. There we go. So what I'm going to do now, I'm mainly going to be working with my blue now, maybe a little bit of purple, but mainly with, I want this mostly to be blue. Oh wait, I say that, but I forgot we haven't added in our reflective colors here yet. So let's do that first. Now I invite you to just wet the part of your river. Just make the river wet, or moist, I should say, because we want a little bit of reflective color before we start working with our blues. If we start mixing our yellow with our blues, we're going to get a green river, and we really don't want that. So I have made my little river moist. There we go. Like so. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to make a dense orangey yellow that I mix with just, I think this is cadmium yellow, and I mix it with just like a tad, a little dappy dapple of orange. I mix in just to get the yellow even more intense, and then a tiny bit of pink, like really just the tiniest bit, like so. We don't want a lot of it. I'm just gonna mix that all together. And then I'm gonna look at where my sun is at. And if I think about reflection, right, I think that the reflection of the sun will end up somewhere in this corner right here. But when you look here, we are supposed to have like a snowy field in the way. So this will cast a shadow over this curve that we have right here. So this will be higher, this part right here will be higher than our river right there, meaning the sunlight from the sky will not be able to reach what is happening in this little cornery curve right there. So what I think I'll do is think that my sun is kind of being reflected here. So I'm just going to put a little bit of orange here. But yeah, maybe I'll add a little bit here as well, just for some extra color. And then, since our sky is also pink, a little bit of pinkish red, I'm going to add that in here too. Just to add a little bit of interest. I'm trying to make my lines a little bit like straight, because this is non-moving water. Like that. And then I'm taking a clean brush and just going to smudge it all out, because this is kind of just like a background color for when I start adding in the actual river color. There you go. Most importantly to remember is that I think my sun is being reflected about here. So I keep this bright. Try to keep this bright. A bit of extra yellow in it. This will all make sense soon. We are still just working on background layers here. So it might look a little bit funky to put these colors right there, but we will figure this out together, won't we? There we go. Maybe I'll add a little bit of pink here now, just for some interest. There we go. Take my hairdryer and just dry this up. And there we go. And now it is time to start working with our blue, which is kind of like the main attraction. I wanted to say that doesn't make any sense, but like it's the main color. Our focus color for this painting is the blue, the wintry blue. So I'm going to start with a very light puddle of that. Just activate this one again. Let's see if I have any. Remember, as long as it's more like a purpley kind of blue, a berry blue, not a green blue, you will get a beautiful result, I think. I'm starting out with a very, very thin, watery puddle. Very, very thin. I'm also using a brush that's soaking up all my water, so that's not working. Just do like this. See, adding in a bit more blue. Now, another important thing here is that the further something goes away from you, the less vibrant it gets. The closer it gets, the warmer and the more vibrant in color it is. Meaning that when we work with blues in the background here, it needs to be kind of more dull. We want it a little bit more grayish blue, whilst at the front here, we want more of a vibrant blue. So again, very thin layer of blue. And then I'm gonna take clean water and I'm gonna make my page wet again, but this time I'm only gonna be making wet my mountain. I'm gonna be moisturizing my mountain. I'm gonna be moisturizing my mountain. It's time to moisturize our mountain. And moisturize the left side. We don't have to be working on the right side just yet. So just add water on the left side of your painting. There we go. And I'm going to I'm going to take my very faint, I can't talk anymore. What's going on? Faint puddle of blue. Dip it off some excess on my brush. And I'm just going to start adding in. So you see we already have a little bit of color on our mountain. So you can try to add your blue on the spots where you don't yet have color, just to preserve what is already on there. Like so. We're just indicating that our mountain is here. We're going to fill in a lot of colors later. But right now we're just telling our brains that, hey, here's a mountain. Remember that. And then we have a little hill here. Now this hill, since it's closer, will be a little bit denser in color. Can be a little bit darker, a bit more contrasty. Just going to follow the lines here. Ooh, like so. We're still working with such faint and watery layers that you cannot go wrong here. There's nothing wrong you can do. If a little funky little accident happens, or what does Barbara say again? If a happy little accident happens, which it usually does with watercolor, you can always paint over it, or you can embrace it and let it be a part of your beautiful painting. And now I'm just like putting in a little bit of blue. Now I need to remember that this is our snowy area. So yes, we are putting blue on snow, because if you were to actually observe snow, it is never pure white. It always reflects the colors it's surrounded by. It soaks up the colors of its surroundings. And since this is a very cool, wintry area, it will look most definitely most blue. But that's also why we have a little bit of yellow, because the snow might even reflect the color of the sky. Now, once you have the blue, take a clean brush, make sure that it's clean, have a bit of paper, and we're just gonna remove some of it. You can also use the paper itself to just dab it off, just to create a bit of nuance in our little terrain, or how do you call it? Like so. There we go. So now we got some blues going on, and before we continue working here, we are gonna add some blue to the other side. So wet your paper on the other side. Here we go. This time around, you can actually also wet your river, because we need some blue and some violet in our river. There you go. Just moisturizing. We are not washing our painting, we are moisturizing our painting. Like so. We can also take, if you see here, we have our little hill here. This is the closest hill that we have, so this is going to be the bluest one, because the closer these areas here come, these hills behind here come to the sun, the more it will be like in the colors from the sun, if that makes sense. The sun is shining more vibrantly on these hills than on this one, so these need to be lighter in color and warmer in color. I know that's kind of counterintuitive, because I'm saying that things that come closer to you are warmer and more vibrant, but you also need to take into consideration our lighting, what do you call it, where the lighting is coming from. So this all is basically almost in shadow, right? So this will be automatically darker, because if the light doesn't reach this side of the painting, it will automatically be darker. Whilst, yes, these hills here are further away, but they are also kind of in the spotlight of the sun. So they will get the warm, beautiful sky colors directly on them. So we need to reflect that on our hills. And now I think my paper has already dried, so I need to work a little bit effectively here. Here we go. So I'm just gonna make this hill bit violet, like so. And then I'm gonna continue with my blue and just add it, just dapping it in, keeping some spots with more white, just because there's different color changes in terrain, right? So we need to keep it all a little bit. Keep it nuanced. Keep things light, keep things nuanced. We can always add more, but it's hard to take things away in watercolor. So we start light and then work towards darker when we feel more confident to do so. So I think I'm just gonna start adding in. So when you want to color in when you're coloring in your river, make sure that you make straight lines, because it's not really a running river, or it's very still, it's quiet. So in order to make it look flat, because the water is flat, we need to make horizontal lines. Remember when I talked about that different like curves, upward curves, downward curves, or like S's, it all brings the illusion of what the terrain looks like. And straight lines make things look straight. So just adding that a little bit. And the funky thing now, the funky and the fun thing that you can see is that I'm adding blue to my river, but you can still see the beautiful colors beneath. So even though we've added blue to our snow, because we had a white background, it just becomes like a fainter tone of blue. Whilst when I add blue here, the pink kind of shines through the blue, so it becomes more violet, but it looks very mixed, it looks very blended, and that's what we're after. So just keep on adding in some blues here and there where you feel comfortable, where you feel it to be comfortable. You can also add a little bit more blue. You see these corners here, right? Wait, let me just make some more color. Since our terrain, this terrain on the sides right here, is higher up than than our river, that means that these curves right here are in shadow. It creates a shadow because it blocks the sunlight from reaching this part of the water. And now it suddenly actually looks like we have a river going on, which is always, it always fascinates me when I start adding in the shadow. It's so easy to doubt that your watercolor painting can become anything when you're working with very faint colors, but once you start adding in the contrast, it's just like magic. Like so, and I'm just gonna smooth out the edges a little bit, blend it a little bit. Just dab in a clean brush here and there. Just play around. You cannot do it wrong. It's nothing. This is your inner landscape. This is your world. It can look exactly how you want it to look. If it's a bit messy, if it's a bit all over the place, well, maybe that's how your peace and calm world looks right now, and you're just trying and doing your best to find some calm amidst the chaos. Now I want a little bit more details on my mountain, but since my mountain is far away and it's in the shadows, we're gonna mix our blue. But I want it a little bit more dull. And the way that I do that is I actually take the color on like the opposite color wheel. How do you say it? The opposite color on the color wheel with wheel of blue, which in this case, I think I don't have it right here, but I think it's like a brownish. I'm just gonna take warm brownish and look what happens when I do that. I'm not taking a lot, just dapping it in because I still want my blue to be there, but I want it to be less vibrant so that it becomes more gray blue. So when I actually add a color that is more on the other side of the spectrum, a warmer color, can you see that? It just becomes more gray, and that's what I'm after. Because the mountain is far away, it's on the shadow side, so it means it sucks out the color, it sucks out the vibrancy, it sucks out the contrast. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to start on the side that I definitely know is in shadow. So I made a line kind of on the middle here. Just, if you can't really see your lines anymore, just take your color and make some lines. So, kind of goes so that you have like a distinct little, how do you call it? On one side, you don't do anything with your mountain. On the other side, you add a bit of shadow, like so. And then I'm going to make it a little bit more vibrant again. Or not vibrant, I mean I'm going to like make it a bit darker. I want a bit more of a dense puddle. I don't want more color. I don't want the color to be more intense because I'm going to add a little, we're still working on the shadow side, but I do want it to be darker. So here we got a grayish blue. I'm just going to go over this again. Don't have to fill in everything because the watercolor itself already does a lot of the work for you. And then. Now I want a more purpley violet kind of blue because now we're working on the side that's going more towards the light, that has more light on it. So I'm taking my blue, taking a little bit of my pink, whoop, like that, not too much, mixing it up, and it's very faint. Faint? Why do you keep saying faint? I mean faint with an F, not a T. There we go. A beautiful berry blue. I can't talk anymore. Keeping it very light. And then I'm gonna start looking at the points here, and I'm just gonna drag it down a little bit. You don't have to fill in everything. Just gonna fill in the rest of it. Keep a couple of those light spots just for where you might have some reflective light. And just watch as your little mountain comes to life. Still working with very faint colors here. That's okay. Like so. And then I'm taking a bit more of my gray color. And I'm just trying to think of like places here where, you know, that might be shining away from the sun. So I might see a peak here that is, or like a little hollow in the mountain that's blocked from the light. And here I might have a bit of rock that doesn't really reach the light. Maybe we have something going on there. And it's all just, you don't actually have to know what you're doing, just dab in some colors and let the watercolor do the rest. And then you can mix it all up a little bit. And just simply by playing around with color, and warmer colors, duller colors, more vibrant colors, you can give the illusion of a shadow side, a light side, without it actually, like if you were to look at the details of this mountain, would it even look like a mountain? But that's the fun part of watercolor. It's just, watercolor invites our imagination to see things that aren't even necessarily there. Like we can start seeing shapes out of nonsense. So I find that, yeah, I really like watercolor for that. It's just a beautiful imagination. It's a beautiful way to activate your imagination. I'm just going to go a little bit darker here again. Just to indicate the shadow side of my little mountain. That's good enough to me. Now that way, for now, we can work on this mountain later on if you want. But for now, I want to work a little bit more on my terrain, just to give it a bit more depth. So I'm making a more vibrant blue again. And now I'm just gonna, like this hill right here is kind of coming towards us. So we can, with the illusion of curved lines that go from down to up a little bit, like across, how do you call it? How do you say that? I don't know, but maybe you can see what I'm doing. I'm just making these curved lines so that it's not like a flat background, but more something that blends into the landscape that we have more at the front. It's a little bit not blue enough because it blends in too much with my mountain, which I don't want. So making it a little bit bluer. And notice how I don't color everything in like with the landscape here, because I want it to keep some structure, or like keep some interest. It kind of already creates details for me. There we go. And then I'm going to take a clean brush and just kind of, at some places, let the water run a little bit. This is where I really want and like for the watercolor to take over. I just dab in some water, I dab with my brush, and it just does a thing of its own to make it blend it. We have preserved some highlights in those hills. But those hills also blend in with our, let's see, our snowy area here. So if you look at our snowy area, the one that is in the most light is here at the front by the waterline, right? And here at the front. This side is more exposed to the light than this side. So we can confidently add a bit more blue in the back here. Remember that if you make upward curves or downward curves with straight lines, it indicates if it goes up in the terrain or if it goes down in the terrain or if it's just straight. So I'm trying to I'm using my lines as a tool to show what kind of terrain is going on here. But I'm making sure that at the front I'm keeping it very light blue to indicate that this is snow, this is not grass or anything, like so. And then I do the same, I clean my brush and I just smudge everything a little bit. That way you preserve a couple of hard lines, but you also preserve a couple of soft lines, which gives this like interesting texture. And again, it helps create the illusion of a nuanced terrain. It's all just knowing tips and tricks to kind of fool the mind, but in a good way. You're fooling the mind to see beautiful things. That's basically what we're doing here. You can even add a little bit of white. Just to show, because now we're going to work on this side of the painting, so we can show that this is a lighter side of the painting than this side. That's why I'm adding a little bit of white, but I'm still making a very light consistency as well. And I'm just going to add in some downward curves, some upward curves to show what kind of terrain we are working with. Also, an important thing to notice that the more we move away from things, the smaller they get. So if you work on landscapes, for example, on parts that are further away, it can be a good idea to work with smaller pencils. I should probably be using a smaller pencil right now because I'm getting pretty thick strokes at the back here. But since I'm not working on details yet, it's fine. But once you start working on details, one way to really make it pop and stand out is to keep things blurry in the background, keep it small, paint it small, and keep it painted like lack of detail. Do not have a lot of detail in the background if you want the whole painting to pop. Put the details at the front, close to you, because when you're close to things, you can usually see the details, right? And the further things get away from you, the more blurry it becomes. And so you can use that as a practice in your painting, to have detailed things at the front and blurry things in the background to really make it feel like there's depth going on. So that's what we're going to be doing soon, but for now we're just still adding in some background color here. This is still all pretty much background. We're building layers of background, which ultimately becomes the entire painting. I wasn't too good at preserving my white here, but that's okay, because it's still a very light layer in general. I think it's time to start creating a little bit more depth with our river and a little bit more depth in our terrain. I think that the background is still blending a little bit too much with the foreground, so we gotta do something about that. So we're gonna mix our blue color again, make it pretty dense this time. What I'm going to start is now I'm going to work from the foreground. I think I've been working a lot from the background moving forwards. Now we're going to go from the foreground moving to the background, because in the foreground there's the most contrast, there's the most detail, there's the most contrast. So when I see here, there's not a big distinction between the river, between the snow, between the whatever terrain is going on here. So again, I'm just going to use my downward strokes to show that it kind of like dips off down here into the river. So I want it to look like this part is going downwards, like so. So I'm just going to make some downward strokes. Also, since this part right here, am I filming? I am filming. Since this part right here is very much in the shadow side, we can make this pretty dark. And I'm just gonna fill that in with color, like so. So it looks like that the terrain coming from the left here down towards the river, it looks like it goes down, so it's not straight. I hope that makes sense. I still have to learn. Like I said, I've never been a teacher. I've always made art for myself, and I'm still very much learning to make art myself. And so explaining things isn't always that easy. So of course, feel free to let me know in the comments what is unclear, what made you understand things, what didn't make you understand things, which is very important so that I can improve on that in the future. There we go. And I'm just using, again, the way I make my lines. That's how I show what kind of terrain we're working with. And the further away I get, the smaller I'm trying to make my strokes, because the detail disappears, things get smaller, so it kind of needs to be. So now I just invite you to play around with your lines and what you learned about lines today. The curved ones upward, the curved ones downward. When you make them diagonal, when you make them cross, how do you call it when they go across? Like when it's not straight, but it's, is that diagonal? Oh gosh, my English is failing me. There we go. And still I try very hard, or I'm not trying very hard, but like I really want to preserve these very bright, not white spots, but bright places to indicate that this is in fact snow. But of course the terrain in the background gives us a lot of shadowy parts to work with. We will, when we start working on detail, we will be starting to incorporate some white. So you'll see the effect that that brings soon. For now, just trust the process of making your lines. Think about where your light is coming from. In the places where you don't think that the light hits, that's where you add more blue color. All the shadow sides get a solid dose of blue. Like so. And then to make everything blend in better, you clean your brush and you just soften some of the lines. Some lines can be hard, definitely, and harsh, but also soften them up to create some interest and to let watercolor do its thing. I see now that I have decent blue values at the front here, but I feel like my very main shadow side, which is here on the left, it looks too much like my right side and the same kind of colors. I don't like that. I don't want my very shadowy side to blend in too much with the focal point, which is like my river. That's like the main attraction, or the main, oh gosh, I lose my words, but I want my river to be in focus, meaning I need to dull down things a little bit, make it a little darker. Here I go. Now I'm just adding a bit more of my gray colors to my hill here. And also it's important to know that when you have like this hill right here, it's starting to blend too much into my mountain, but that doesn't matter. But like, since it's kind of catching the light of the sun, you get this silhouette. So this needs to be fairly dark. Maybe we will highlight the edge later on, but it is capturing the light from behind, the sunlight from behind. So it ends up in a silhouette, and so it needs to be dark. Now that I got quite a bit of contrast in here, I see now that my hills, especially this violet hill, can use a little bit more color. We can bring it a little bit more to the front. So I'm just going to add a bit more violet to that. Bringing out the silhouette a little bit better, like so. And that makes the background hill stand out even more, which is nice. Okay, then we have our river. Let's see. Then it is time, I think. Let me see. Now I think that we safely can make our hill even darker than our mountain, because the thing is, yes, the mountain has a shadow side. Yes, it's a big thing that captures a lot of light and then also creates a lot of shadow, but it is far away. So in following that principle basically means that this should be a little bit lighter and a little bit fainter than the hills that are much closer, and then therefore can have a lot more detail, can have a lot more contrast. So you'll see the funny thing here is we're going to work on the hill again now. I'm going to create more detail and darker detail on this one, whilst the mountain itself, since it's further away, will keep it very faint. It doesn't have a lot of detail, and that is because it's far away. And that way we can separate our hills from the mountain. So again, working with the blues, but I'm going to add a little bit more of the brown. I really want a dark here now. I am also going to preserve the highlights that I have going on to show that it does actually capture light. It's not just like a wall. The hills are here to capture the light. Let's see if this is dark enough. Yeah, I think it is. So what you'll see me do is, again, I'm just making different shaped lines of how I want my hill, where and how I want my hill to go. We can make some dapples, we can make some. And it should be a little bit darker than our mountain, because we want it to stand out. It's darker and more contrasty because it's closer towards us. And there we go. Now it stands out a little bit more. We can actually, we can do a little bit like that, the same thing with our violet hill. Just make sure that the color is fainter. It is more violet since it's closer to the sun, so it changes color because it captures more of the sunlight color than it captures the shadow color. Let's see. We're keeping it faint because it's far away, but we can have a little bit more detail, like so. That's not a lot of color. Let's make a bit more color out of that. And I think that if you really just take your time with watercolor, it's such a beautiful medium to play around with. It just allows for so much play. It allows for so much imagination because the paint has a life of its own. it kind of shows you things that you think you want it a certain way, but you can't get it exactly that way because it's watercolor and it has its own life. And then it shows you alternatives, and it invites your imagination to see things that you didn't see there before. And so it's just this beautiful collaboration of you and the art, you and the paint, in my humble opinion. We might even add a little bit of violet actually to this side of the snow, just because it has more nuance, more light. It's not the shadow side, it's the light side, so it can have a bit more color. Then we can do the same here, because this side is also, this part of the snow is also exposed to the light, like that. Okay, so now the trick is, when you see at our, look at our hills here, right? It creates this kind of barrier towards our landscape. And so it also creates a strong shadow side, meaning we have to paint a shadow on our snow to indicate that like it blocks the light that is coming from the sun. So let's make a really, really dark blue and brown. That's almost like a gray, because now we're just making like plain shadow. We don't want brown, we just want a very dark grayish blue. See, now we're going to start working on the details, because now we're really going to bring out that contrast, which is my favorite part. Now we're going to like show off all the layers and all the background work that we've done. And I love that. I love that part. So there we go. So the only thing I'm going to do is, since the sunlight here, it's like it's shining towards the mountain, it's shining towards the river, it's shining towards everything, but the hill is blocking the sunlight from reaching this like area right here behind it, the snowy area behind it, so it needs to be really dark. Now that we have our shadow side here, I'm going to take more of that dark color, adding in a little bit more blue, I think. No, wait. Don't do as I say, and don't do as I do. We need a new puddle of some blue first, because I want a little bit more texture, or like a little bit more detail in my water before we start adding the shadow to the water. There we go. So what I'm going to do is take my blue, and I'm just, remember the straight lines that indicates that things are flat. Let's use our straight line technique to add more detail to our water. See here at the front, you can make big bold strokes. As you move further away, make sure that your lines become a little thinner, because the detail gets less the further away we go. So here's just, at the back here I barely have any lines really. I just add in a bit more color, but the lines and the details disappear because it's farther away. Just here we can play around with bold strokes. Like so. For now that's good enough. Now I do think that the color from the land is a little bit too similar to the watercolor, so we're taking our darker, more muted color, because now we're going to add more shadow here as well. Just going to blend that. And I think now I'm going to go to my tiniest brush. Like so. And the first thing I'm going to do is just make a line up until my first point right here. I'm not going beyond it, because this, let's see, this shadow right here is purely there because this piece of snowy land, hinders the light from the sun to reach this part of my river. So we're not going to put it here because there's this, the sun has access, I would say, to this part of the river, but it does not have access to what's behind this little one right here. Just adding that in. like so. I'm going to do the same for this next little tip that we have right there. Nope, that's too much. Add that in right there. Just a very strong little shadow. Then I might actually use my bigger brush again. Just blend that in. Like that. Just massage that in a little bit. Just make some lines. Just make it look like so. And then I also want more shadow here, but I want it a little bit more vibrant because the contrast fades the further we get away. So it doesn't have to be as grayish, bluish dark. I'm just following the tips that go to the front. So I'm not following all the line like the the body of the S, right? I'm not following the curve that goes to the right. Because this is the top of our snowy bits, and that is in sunlight. So that doesn't need any shadow. It's not casting any shadow. So see. And I just keep working on my shadows until I feel like it really is popping. So you can do the same. Just add in darker layers of color, add in a little bit of extra swirls for the detail. Ooh, might be too much. Softening things up a little bit. And there we go. We got something going on, that's for sure. So a little bit more blue, I think. A bit more vibrancy at the front here, just for the sake of the color. Softening it up. Oh, we can actually add a bit more blue here. Like so. And then I will continue with my blue puddle that does not have any gray in it. So I want a little bit more here on my snowy area, front of my snowy area. See, let's give this hill right here just a tiny bit more detail, like so. A bit of shadow. And we can make it a little bit more blue here, since this hill is kind of blocking the light going there. Like so. So now we have a pretty good, I would say, point or like painting, but we haven't added any detail yet, which is the most exciting part. So let's do that. Whoop! I'm sorry, did I just move you around? I think we can add a couple of trees, for example, there we can add some grass. I would like to add some white paint as well. So if you have white paint, let's start with that. Let's take the white paint and I'm going to show you something cool. Since the white paint is transparent, it will light things up, make things lighter. It won't make it completely white, but it will also show the shadow, the darker areas underneath. So if we don't make it too dense, we can now start adding this. Wait, that's too much. Keep it very light at first because you can always put on more white later. Like so. We can start adding this on top of the color that we already had. So that it does become brighter, but it also preserves the colors underneath. Remember, just go over it with a clean brush so that you can smudge it out the way that you want. Remember, snow isn't white. It might be pristine white if you have like a completely white environment, but snow usually just reflects the colors of its surroundings. And as you can see, there's not really like a purpose behind the lines that I'm making, other than that I'm thinking about the curved lines, the straight lines, and what they represent, kind of. But I just smudge it in, and then I invite my imagination and the watercolor to cooperate to figure out how to make the best illusion of this wintry landscape. I might add in some more white later, but I'm going to keep it like this for now. And there we go. Maybe I add a bit more blue to some places. And I just, like now I'm at that stage where I have all my colors in place and I'm just playing around to see what is the nicest. And this is also just a beautiful opportunity for you, since you are creating your own world of calm and quiet. Let your imagination show up and just play around. You've done all the technical parts, you've done your best to create the best base painting, and now it's really just about adding the fun details, making this your own, right? Okay, so I'm pretty pleased with that, but I feel like we are missing a bit of detail. I would like to add some detail at last, so let's do that. I'm gonna add some trees, I think. So I'm gonna mix a dark puddle of water. No, that makes no sense. I'm also picking the wrong color. Give me a moment. Let's see. I'm gonna pick this over there. Mixing my dark with a little bit of brown again to create this really dark color. I will also, give me a second, I will also dry this later. This way, our trees that we want to add don't start bleeding into everything. We don't want that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, I would like to have, we need to make some big decisions on where we want our trees. So I might want some trees here. So I'm just gonna basically just think about a triangle again whilst making zigzaggly lines. just zigzagging, making some weird brush lines. Just the only thing you need to think about is that it starts narrow at the top and then you branch out whilst making squiggly lines. Make the trees as big as you want. That's a nice tree right there. Gonna make a smaller one in the background, I think. I can make a very tiny one over there. There we go. Now I might want a big tree at the front here, then I will probably need my bigger brush. Let's make a bigger tree. Let's go here. I'm gonna start right about there. Making big decisions. Just going over everything. This one, since it's closer, it will also end closer at the front here. So it kind of is half off the page, I think. Like that. Oh, that looks nice. I like that. Just place them in there for now. We're going to work on the trees, the details of the trees later. Just place them so that you have, you know where you have them. You know where you have them. So that you know where you have them. You can also make the tree at the front a little bit more darker and contrasty than the ones in the back, since we see more of its details. Make another one here. Just make squiggly squat lines like so. And then we have we want some more trees. Maybe we want some bushes in the back. That's just, you're just literally tapping with the front of your, with the tip of your brush, just tapping some small bushy things in the back. Maybe we add another little tree somewhere there, a bit of a bush. Maybe we have a bit of a bluer bush. If you want to place trees and bushes close to the water's edge, remember that that is more in the light than the shadow size that we're working with, so you also need to make it a little bit bluer. It's still backlit, so it's going to be blue. You're seeing the shadow side of things, but let's make a bush there, shall we? Making a bit of a bush. And we have a bit of a bush here too. And a bushy bush there. This makes me feel like I should make my tree here a little bit bigger, because these bushes in the back look pretty big. Need to make sure that the things that are in the front are significantly bigger than the things that are in the back. So maybe we do like this. Like so. And then I'll just flatten this out a little bit to make it, to integrate it. Integrate it with our landscape, like so. Like that. A little bit like that. You can take our blue color, can make it a little bit shadowy. Then again, here you're just playing around with some fun little bushes, cute little bushes, cute little trees. Place them wherever you feel like. The most important thing is that if it's closer to you, it's bigger. And if you place it further away, it needs to be smaller. Now I want to darken my trees a little bit more at the front. They need to be a little bit darker. I know that a lot of people paint with watercolor because they like the watery effect of it, and I honestly just like to go very heavy on the contrast. That's like, you don't have to do this by any means. This is just a preference of mine, that I try to get out as much contrast in my painting as possible, but it's absolutely not necessary if you prefer to keep things very light. So I'm just gonna just indicate my tree here a little bit better. And this tree right there. Got a tree there too. Mustn't forget about that one. Like so. And then I want some grass. I'm going to add some grass, and then we're going to work a little bit more with white, and then we are going to be done. Just wherever you feel like. Just place. Make some diagonal, some straight lines. Make sure that the grass straws are smaller the further away they get. And Bambam is barking. Excuse that. Maybe also adding a little bit of dark underneath your bushes, simply because of shadow. Again, need to make some shadow. Make them stand out a little bit more. I have one more trick up my sleeve with a white zone, which will make everything pop. So don't worry if you feel like it's hard to see things right now. I want to smudge out things a little bit more in the back. It must not be too detailed since it's far away. We're keeping it very light, and I think I've gone a little bit too heavy on the details in the back, but that's okay. I'm gonna add the last bit of my grass. Making some big grassy things here just to indicate that this is at the front. Maybe even make that a little bit darker. Like this last part is simply about adding more paint where you want it, working on the details, adding the grass, adding the trees, just really having fun. Really having fun with the details of your painting. Like I said, I really enjoy adding in as much contrast as I can, but you don't have to by any means. Keep it light if you want. Make it darker if you want. Make it more vibrant if you want. This is your painting. This is your inner world. This is your wintry scene of calm and quiet, that world. So it needs to reflect what you enjoy in art. Okay, let's see, do I want a little bit more? I could work on this forever, I think. Which we're not going to do. We're not going to do that. I need to remind myself of that. Just gonna add a little bit more grass at the front here. Well, that was maybe a bit of an overstatement. Those were too big. Let's not do that. Let's see. Last thing we're gonna do is add our white. So mix a decent puddle of white. Again, start with a puddle that is pretty thick this time, but not its thickest. So we make a puddle of white. Oh, you can't see me do that, but I am making currently a puddle of white, like so. And since this is snow, I again just want to emphasize how my terrain is going first and foremost. So I'm just making these lines that indicate. You know what? Let's use a thinner pen. A thinner brush is what I'm trying to say, because my strokes are getting too big. Use a thin brush if you have it. If you don't have a thin or like a tiny brush, just be very gentle when you apply the white. And this way, just adding a bit. Just adding a bit of snow in the areas where it works. Also taking a moment to blend it a little bit better so that it's not just like obvious strokes, but with a clean brush, we just smudge out a few of the lines. So what you can see now is that because I'm making this line right here pretty obvious, you can see that it immediately just brings out the foreground. It makes it look like it's in front of the river here, that the river is kind of going behind it. And that's what we're after. Using the white to just emphasize how the river is going, how everything is working here. And of course, once we've done that and smudged our edges a little bit better, we also have our trees that need a bit of attention. So taking our we're taking our white, make it really dense this time. Make it as dense as you can. I'm currently doing that, you just can't see it. Like so. I'm going to take an even smaller brush, or maybe not. Yeah, I'm going to take a smaller brush. See? I'm taking my white, and I'm just going to like dab it on. Dab it on the parts that are exposed to sunlight, kind of. So I'm just like if you've seen any of Bob Ross's videos, right? He just takes white or lighter colors and he just simply uses a brush, the fan brush I think he uses, and he just dabs it on. Just as we're doing now. I'm trying to like keep the shadow side mostly clean because it is in shadow side. So I'm just going to go over my trees here. And make them stand out. And do the same with my bushes. And just dabble it on the places where I think that light might hit it. And then maybe in the background it's not as strong, so I might just dab it a little bit just to make it disappear. Like so. And as you can see, since we're using watercolor white paint, it does get quite dull. So if you have a white ink pen, a white ink pen. If you have a white ink pen, then that can work wonders for like the really, really bright white details. Let's do that because I want to show you, I want to do that for the sun and a couple of other things. So that's going to be the very last thing that we do. Give me a second, I need to go find my pen. I have my pen. Mine is a jelly roll Sakura jelly roll. I'm going to use that. I'm going to show you because we have our sun here. I'm just going to make with my pen. Oh, it's not working very well, but I'm supposed to. There we go. Just going to make a tiny circle in the area that I tried to keep very bright from the beginning. And now just adding a white circle, like so. And then I can do the same for the areas, for example, the tips of my pen isn't working. Why is my pen not working? This is typical. It's not working when I need it. I'm just adding it here. I might be adding a little bit on the water, but on the parts where I know that the sun hits, so I might even make it extra bright there. Just making a couple of dots, a couple of lines, where I think that the sun might create a reflection for me. Or a highlight, I mean, where I think the sun creates highlights for me. And it immediately, as you can see, brings the water to life. I need to, let's see, oh. Making it a bit wider there. I feel like this is not very, yeah, I could mess with this forever, definitely. I'm seeing things where I'm like, oh, I wish that was different, but hey, this is just perfectly good enough. I've had a wonderful time painting. I hope you have had too. It's been very enjoyable chatting, even though it's just me talking. But just a couple of lines, just really adding in the last. That's what I really like about ending it all off with a white pen, because this is truly white. It stays also white when it dries, whilst watercolor white paint, it will take on the background color that it's being put upon, so you don't get that like complete whiteness. Just to add detail, to add interest. Something like that. Something like this. Oh no, have I overdone it? You can also overdo it. Which I think I might have done a little bit, but... And there we go. We have our little calm and quiet wintry scene landscape. That was it for today. We have made our little wintry scene from the world of quiet and calm. I hope you had an enjoyable time painting it, and if you didn't paint, I just hope you had an enjoyable time during this video. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Did you enjoy it? Was there anything that was annoying or that I can do a little bit better? Because remember, this is the very first time that I filmed, or that, yeah, this is the very first video in the series, and I'd love to improve it in any way that I can so that it becomes the most comforting experience for you. yeah, I for sure had a lovely time. I'm very happy with my little painting. If you want to be a part of the IMOVARA universe, if you want to become a traveler of worlds, feel free to click the subscribe button below and the like button. We also have a very, very lovely and kind Discord community with amazing people, with amazing creative travelers in there. So if you feel like your heart is in need of some kindness, of some lovely people, feel free to check that out as well. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm excited to share the next videos with you. And yeah, let me know what kind of world you'd like to travel to next, and I will try to keep that in mind for the next video. And I will be seeing you in the next one.